Hello there and welcome to another episode of the Brotherz Hardstyle tutorials. Today I'm showing you a project of ours which we try to recreate the Radical Redemption lead. And this is how the final product sounds like. And let's get right into it. So yeah, let's first look at the leads and then move on to the chords and the other stuff that makes the lead sound as it is. So in this project, the lead was made with only 3 layers and they're all silent ones. Let's look at the first layer, and the first layer how it sounds. Basically it sounds like this. And it's sort of a screech basically. On the part A we have a octave higher pitched, basically a saw wave with 3 voices and a little bit of detune. And on the A2 we have the same 1 octave higher, a little bit less on the volume, again using a saw wave, but this time 4 voices and a little more heavily detuned. And if I didn't mention, I already forgot that this is much less loud than the other one. And then on the amplitude it's slightly open up the attack and slightly open up the reverb to make it sound a little bit more smooth. And then on the B part, this was rather interesting, and I guess this was more like a trial and error type of thing, and this also could be really wrong, but this is what makes the sound a little bit more interesting. So basically we have on the B1 oscillator, we have again higher pitched oscillator. And then also we added 7 notes up. And this is only 1 voice, so it's a mono layer and quite low on the volume. And on the B2 we have heavily detuned saw wave with 8 voices, and same thing with the pitch, 1 octave higher and also 7 notes up. Basically the amplitude envelope is same, almost the same on both A and B part. Then we have what makes the screechy sound, which is distortion and a bandpass filter. Basically distortion all the way up, only with high amount, and then using a bandpass filter, and with a combination of different cutoffs and resonance we get the screechy sound. So you can hear, if I play the sound and move the filter controls, you can hear the difference what it makes. Yeah. And yeah, a little bit of pitch envelope. So it's starts from a lower pitch and moves up, and this is only a slight effect. Then we have pitch LFO, which is we're using a sine wave and quite slow rate. I guess it's 1/8 of a note rate, and slight pitch on both oscillators, and just a little bit gain, not much, because if you turn it too much you can hear how it sounds. So it makes a little kind of wobbly sound. And then to make it more screechy, we added a second pitch LFO with high rate, random noise, and a little bit gain. And we have a mono legato here because there are some sliding notes into the MIDI, so we need that. And basically the first lead layer is there. Second one sounds like this. And this is basically a copy of the first one. And again, it's a screechy type lead. A little bit more, you know, harsh. So the most important changes are in the LFO1. We use the saw wave, higher amount of pitch, and much faster rate. So the effect sounds like this. And it's not on a specific, you know, tempo or quarter note, eighth of a note. We use the free option, so it's more, I don't know how to say it, but it's not stopping on certain values. It's more like on a free mode, so you can get much different results, basically. Same pitch modulation, same kind of filter stuff. A little bit alteration on the oscillators. For example, now we have not pitch up or down any octaves, and we have a little bit detuned 8-voiced saw wave on the A1. Basically almost the same on the A2 oscillator, except it's pitched 1 octave higher, and on the B part it's just you know, super saw sound, and the whole B part is toned down a lot, so it's more like a thing that is filling out empty spaces. And the last lead layer, more like a clean sound to make it more full. So there's nothing special about this one. It's heavily detuned saw, super saw, and then we have a mono layer as well. And little bit of pitch LFO with high rate. It's 1/64th of a note. And the P part is empty. And all in all, they sound like this. And on the mixer side, there's nothing too much to talk about here. All the processing is done in the silent ones, so there's just slight EQs on each of the, you know, layers to emphasize things that you want to emphasize. And all of them are routed to a lead bus with some distortion to make it sound, again, a little more screechy, a little more harsh. Then, of course, our trusted friend OTT with, actually this is 70% wet sound and 30% dry sound. And just turn up the time knob a little bit so it's not that plucky or too smooth. Trying to find the perfect balance for it. And I think the reason for this reverb here on the dry sound is that, you know, smoothen out the sound a little bit. I don't know, sounded a little bit too cold or too harsh, so this toned down the sound a little bit and made it more smooth. This is basically the default preset with mix knob turned down to 11.5%. And then a little bit EQ, and there's just cutting out the lows and slightly reducing the side signal, so it's not that, you know, wide, leaving room for the reverb and also also the chords. Then we have a reverb and delay, and they're all coming into a final send, which is the final pass where we combine the reverb, delay, and the lead. And this time we use the wave shaper to a little bit distort the sound, and some OTT with slow reacting compression and very subtle effect to tone it down a little bit. And then we have a mid-side exciter. Basically, we are saturating the mono signal and the stereo signal differently to make it sound more big. And of course, this is not fully wet signal, this is more like parallel processing. You have the dry signal and you have the wet signal. Well, basically, if you look at the values, it's 50-50. And last EQ to cut out the lows. So as you can see, there's not too much processing going on here. Yeah, I think that's the whole lead sound all in all together. Then we can look at the chords and the other stuff as well. Okay, so the chords. Now, chords are quite, I won't say weird, but something a little bit, I guess, different than what we make. Because in the Radical Redemption lead, at least in the original track, you can't hear much of the chords. But I think they still do something in there. Kind of like creating an atmosphere. And the chords sound like this. And basically, chords are quite simple. They are made from the bassline and following the rhythm of the lead. And we also added a chord plugin or a preset, just a hypersaw to still add something more to the lead sound, which is kind of needed. And yeah, this is actually a preset. This was just last minute touches. Use the hypersaw basic preset and just open up the attack just a little bit. And on the real chords, which sound like this. This was just to make things easy. We used the Nexus 2 with from the factory presets detuned lead 1. Open up the attack, open up the release a little bit, and disabled all the delays and reverbs here. So nothing too interesting about that. And on the second ones, again, this is a preset, because why the hell not? If there's someone who has already invented the wheel, why just try to invent it again? Use the presets for things like this if you want to, make something quick. A little tip there. So, this was again a supersaw preset, just to, cut the corners and make everything fast. And again, open up the attack and the release. And on the chords, I think the important part was to, leave room for the lead's attack. That's why we cut out most of the attack from the chords. As you can hear, it's more like smooth, it's not plucky at all. And the lead, again, if you listen to it, it's more plucky. So the punch of the lead comes through, and that's the reason why we open up the attack so much. And on the processing, well, nothing much, just some cutting and boosting frequencies which are needed and not needed. And they're all routed into a bus with some EQ, some saturation and compression. Same type of reverb as in the leads. Basically, this is just a copy from the lead. And then all in all coming into a final send where we have, again, some EQ, mid-side, saturation, compression, EQ. Nothing too fancy about that. Again, it's basically the same type of thing as in the lead final send. Of course, a little bit different plugins used, but the most important part is, of course, the presets and the processing here on the plugins. And now the rest of the stuff which are part of the Radical Redemption lead. And the things which are left are choirs and a bassline. We can look at the bassline real quick. It sounds like this. And it's 2 layers. First layer is sub bassline. Another one is more like upper bass and lower mid bassline to create a little bit more movement. You can easily do a bassline from, for example, from a lead and just lower down the notes and cut out the highs. And then, of course, if you want to make a sub bassline, you need to, have a mono sine wave, of course, which is important part of the sub. And then you need some kind of other oscillator. For example, here we have a saw wave with 2 voices, a little bit detune to, I don't know how you call it. It's not distorting. Well, basically it is distorting the sine wave a little bit, make it seem more loud than it is. I don't know how to explain that, but that's what it is. And on the processing, as you can see, only cutting highs, adding some compression, and this is just 1 knob compression, really easy to use. And on the mid upper bassline, of course, cutting out the unnecessary low end because we already have the sub bass, and both of them are routed into a bus. And there we have some slight compression and some saturation, and final EQ to cut out the unnecessary high end to leave as much as possible for the leads. And that's the bassline. And the choirs, yeah, these are pretty simple. These are just direct wave banks which come with the FL Studio, and they sound like this. That's quite low. And there's just higher, choir and a lower choir with the same notes and EQ'd on the right place. Like the higher ones have cut out the lows and the low ones have cut out the highs. And then into a chord bus which has some reverb and some EQing. And then we have a fruity balance and volume automation here. Like that. And we have a lead choir also. And this is a Nexus preset. And it just follows the melody to add more atmosphere to the whole thing. Yeah, there you go. That's the whole Radical Redemption style lead. And we are planning to release all of our lead tutorials for free. There's a few more coming up, and we are releasing a pack where all the projects are for you guys free to download and to explore. And yeah, that's about it. Let's hear it one more time, and thank you guys for watching, and keep on producing more music. Peace out.